Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. Happy Friday to everybody. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at our official visit list for this weekend. Just kind of going through the players here briefly, talking about, some of their background, what they could bring to this team, the ones that are kind of favoring Tennessee. And we'll talk about some players that have visited before and where we're standing at in the final official visit weekend of June. We all know that July, there might be a couple more official visits, but this is really when it all counts. We've got to close out right here. Can Coach Heupel do it? We'll talk about all that today. Please, as always, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. All right, so before we get into our official visitor list for this weekend, let's talk about some players that have already visited Tennessee that we feel like we're in a pretty good spot with. Number one, Charles House is set to announce tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern time. We might be live streaming that, but we don't know quite yet, so keep a close eye out on the channel. But right now, he sounds like he's leaning to Tennessee. It's going to be down between us, UGA, and Alabama. There's a lot of battles right now between us and UGA. I feel like Tennessee might end up being on the positive side of this whole thing, but we'll see over the next couple of weeks. He's a big-time prospect that we've been trying to get for a very long time. Three-star defensive tackle, about 6'3", 300 pounds, exactly what we need. So hopefully things will go well there. We also have Deshaun Brame, the 4-star tight end from Kansas, and Juan Gaston, the 4-star offensive tackle from Georgia. They're going to be visiting Oregon this weekend, and I think that Tennessee is neck and neck with either Oregon or with Oklahoma to win Deshaun Brame. I think that we are in a really good spot, but a lot is going to be predicated off of this visit this weekend. I actually kind of think that maybe Oregon might be the team for us to try to beat, or maybe we're the team for them to try to beat, but we're 1A and we're 1B, however you want to look at that. And then Juan Gaston, this is a big one for me just because I don't know how much of a realistic shot we have. I would say that we're probably top 3 for him, but UGA and Oregon would probably be his top 2. It sounds like Oregon might actually be number 1. That would be huge for us if he decides to go out of conference and go play with Oregon, even if it's not with us, right? But I would much rather him go to Oregon or anywhere else than go to UGA. So hopefully he comes out of that visit and maybe Oregon can kind of persuade him and his family that, hey, man, look, you know what? I know this is far away from home, but hey, mom, we're going to get you a job up here. Or, hey, mom and dad, whoever family, we're going to get you a whole new life up here in Eugene, Oregon, so that everyone feels comfortable. And you don't have to waste your time going out there and playing with them dogs. I would much rather that than him going there. But it would be cool, of course, if he would commit to our Volunteers. We'll see what happens with that one. Also, David Sanders is going to be going up to Ohio State. That's our biggest competition right now with him. If he comes up out of that one unscathed, I love where we're at. I mean, I kind of love where we're at either way. But we'll see what happens here over the next few hours or so. And then Josh Petty's going to be going down to Florida State. That's our toughest competition with him. His sister is enrolled in classes there, so how much of a factor is that going to be for him? If he comes out of that visit uncommitted to Florida State, I love our chances with him. I know a lot of the insiders haven't really been talking about him, which does kind of give me a little bit of cause for concern. But like I told y'all yesterday, I'm just going to speak it that he is coming on home to Knoxville. And then we're also waiting to see if Jaden Pilati is going to actually go down and visit UGA this weekend. We don't know what's going to happen with that. I forgot to ask him, but like I told you, I didn't feel like I needed to. We'll see. That's going to be a really big one. We're also looking at Dwayne Morris, who is an athlete from Murfreesboro that committed to USC a few months ago. And I know that Tennessee really liked him. I think that he could play a multitude of different positions for us. We're trying to get him to come up in July for an OV. We'll see what happens with that. But the biggest news that's come out over the past few hours is that Isaiah Gibson might be going to UGA this weekend instead of Oklahoma. And if that happens, it could be a little bit of a cause for some concern. I know a whole lot of people are freaking out about that as Tennessee fans. But I'll just tell y'all this. If he's going down to UGA this weekend, it's probably because they said to his agent or maybe to him, to somebody, that, hey, we have a counter offer for you, or, we're going to give you a new offer in NIL, because we know that NIL is a big deal to him. He's going to go down there, and Kirby Smart's going to sit him down with their collective and all that, and they're going to give him an offer, and it's probably going to make him laugh, or it might just piss him off, because it's not going to be anywhere near what Tennessee has offered him. I can almost guarantee you that. Kirby Smart is going to give him this big speech about winning championships and taking one for the team and going pro. And if I'm Isaiah Gibson or if I'm his family, I'm going to look Kirby dead in his face and I'm going to say, well, are you getting paid under market value for college football coaches? Are you taking pay cuts? No? Then why are you expecting us to? Seems like you're the most important person around here, so you don't need us. Why are we going to come up here and waste our time, leave a whole bunch of money out on the table when we still have an opportunity at the University of Tennessee to win championships, to go pro for sure? I mean, they've got the #1 pass rusher in college football right now. Y'all don't have that. Y'all's pass rush was almost abysmal last season. It was nowhere near Tennessee's. Why would we take a pay cut to come here and play for you just so that you can win championships and not even guaranteed winning championships so that you can potentially win them. That kind of stuff doesn't work no more. That's why Nick Saban retired. So guys like Kirby Smart, guys like Dabo Swinney that don't want to pay these players are either going to have to hang it up on their own or they're going to get pushed up out of the door. So we'll see some more of this as we're going through it. But that's just my 2 cents, right? I think that as long as UGA is not offering anything near what Tennessee has offered to Isaiah Gibson, there is absolutely no reason for him to go there. It just doesn't make any sense. So y'all can be scared all you want, but we'll see how this thing plays out. I think that Tennessee remains in a really good position. And even if UGA does offer him, maybe even with what Tennessee had offered him initially, I think that we can counter offer, and I think that we will because Isaiah Gibson is just that talented of a player, and he would mean that much to this team. So not too concerned about that one moving forward, but it's time to go ahead and jump into our official visitor list for this weekend. All right, so we have 12 official visitors this weekend. 3 will be commits. 9 will be uncommitted. We have it broken down by position, and the players that are in green are the ones that I feel like Tennessee has the best shot to land. But we've got a good shot to land everyone that's coming up this weekend. And if you look to the right of each player's name, you'll see their on-3 player rating. That's going to correlate to the box in the bottom right-hand corner. That is showing us the skill of the blue chip caliber players according to on-3 from 5 to 4 stars. And also, whenever you're looking at those player ratings that we're seeing on the screen right now, the players that are like a 90 and above will help us to get to that top 5 class that we're all looking for. And right now we're at like an 89 overall average for all the players that we have committed. We want to get to a 91 with 21 commits. And once we get there, we should be cracking into the top 5. So starting off with the commits, we've got 4-star wide receiver Redarius Jackson. Hopefully he has a good time and can help us recruit guys like Travis Smith. Then we've got 3-star running back Justin Baker from Beaufort, Georgia. Hopefully he has a great time. Hopefully he helps us recruit as well. I think that all these guys are going to be pretty much helping us to recruit. And we've also got 3-star wide receiver Joakim Dotson. So these are some guys that are already studs, but the biggest thing for them is, again, we want to make sure that they stay solid to Tennessee. We want to, keep them feeling very wanted, very needed, but they're gonna have to help us to recruit some. Probably not as much this weekend though, because it's not nearly as many players as we had last weekend. Now getting into the players that are uncommitted, starting off with 4-star offensive lineman Douglas Utu, 6'4", about 300 pounds, from Bishop Gorman High School in Nevada. He's a guy that I haven't talked a lot about, but I love his film. Albeit his huddle only goes up to like his sophomore season. I did get a chance to watch him some with Bishop Gorman last season. And he looks really good. He actually plays tackle for them, I think, on the right side. But he's a guy that, at his size is probably going to be playing interior offensive lineman for us. And you can look at his number right here, his player rating, and you can see that he's close to being a 5-star guy. So he's definitely one of those higher caliber 4 stars. He's already been on OVs to Michigan. I believe he's been to Washington. And he had plans to go to Alabama and Nebraska and Oregon. I don't know if he's been on all those or, what's going on there. But Tennessee is pretty high up on his list right now. We're hoping that we can kind of seal the deal with him. Doesn't sound like he talks a whole lot to pretty much anybody. So there's not a whole lot of information in, regards to who his real favorites are. But I do know that he wants to go to school for business. So he really liked Michigan's business school. There's some things that he liked coming up out of that visit. But I think that everything that he liked with Michigan, Tennessee is going to be able to show him a lot more of. And we're going to probably blow his socks off in this visit. So hopefully things go well there. Cannot have, I don't think, too many good offensive linemen, but he will be a really, really good one. I absolutely love his film. Now, the next player is going to be Bryce Jenkins, and he's listed up under defensive lineman right now because that's where Tennessee wants him to play at. He actually is an offensive lineman according to On3, but he's a 6'4", 330-pounder from Washington, D.C., and he is the son of Rob Halsley, who played basketball for our Volunteers back in the 80s, so that's a good little connection for us right there. And he's already been on visits to Maryland on June the 7th and South Carolina on June the 14th. Now, South Carolina is probably our biggest competition, and he's talked before about wanting to add one more OV. Not quite sure if that's still going to happen, but he's a guy that, obviously with defensive tackle being such a pressing need for us and us having so many guys that can kind of play maybe strong side DN and also kind of play defensive tackle, he's one of those players that is a true, for sure, no doubt about it, defensive tackle. But I like him because he's versatile enough that if we need him to play on the offensive side of the football, I think he could do that at a really high level. I don't really know why we're not targeting him more to play on offense. Maybe he does kind of end up there with all of these defensive tackle types of bodies that we could potentially be getting in this year's class. But he's a really, really good one, and I think that Tennessee is in a good spot with him. Like I said, South Carolina is going to be our toughest competition with him, but we'll see what happens coming up out of this visit. I think that he wants to make a decision here pretty soon, maybe like at the end of June or at the beginning of July. So on to the next player, another defensive lineman we have, Maran Davis, 6'5", 268 pounds. And he is an absolute and total stud. I love watching his film because I don't know if he's really playing at this weight and at this size on his junior film, but if he is, oh my gosh, it's incredible because he could play Leo at that size and at that weight, or he could play strong side defensive end. And he's almost big enough, y'all, to be able to bump in and play inside at defensive tackle. So extremely versatile. I love what I'm seeing from him. A whole lot of advanced pass rush moves, great burst, great speed, extreme length, right? He's 6'5". I think he's got like a 7'1" wingspan, very long arms, and he can also play in space. So he's one of those guys that, I mean, just a scary, scary athlete, but extremely versatile, extremely multiple. It sounds like he might kind of be the headliner for this visit. Sounds like he's the guy that the staff is probably going to be spending the most time with. But, again, I think that they can spend enough time with all these players. It's just not that many of them compared to last weekend, and we made that one work. So expecting for that one maybe to kind of be trending towards our Volunteers. He has already visited Purdue on May the 31st, UGA June the 7th, and then Ohio State June the 14th. Sounds like right now it's going to be between us and Ohio State, but maybe UGA's kind of got like an outside shot. I feel like it's us and Ohio State at this point, but he does really like Purdue as well. So we'll see what happens with this visit. That's one that I'm going to be probably watching the closest out of all these players. And then we've also got Jalen Woods. He's a player that we have not talked about at all on this channel, but I think, first off, he's a 4-star pass rusher. I think that he could play strong side DN. I think that he's more of that sort of a player, but he can also play Leo, 6'3", 230 pounds. He's from Kansas, and he's been on OVs to Wisconsin, May the 31st, Penn State, June the 7th, and then Purdue, June the 14th. Purdue is kind of making some noise right here. It's pretty surprising to see them getting in this caliber of pass rusher. I'm just going to say this with him. I could definitely see him going on to Penn State. Actually, his jerseys, like his uniforms, look like Penn State's, and maybe that's why. But in watching his film, I just kept on saying to myself, man, I could see him playing for Penn State. He just looks like one of their players. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. He, to me, looks a little bit undersized, but obviously the staff likes him, so they see something in him. Maybe they feel like they can add that weight to him, and he can come in and contribute for us. But again, y'all, I don't have a whole lot of inside information with him because he has not been talked about a lot from our insiders, but I would say that we might kind of be on the outside looking in for him at this point. Still top 3, but more like at that 3 spot. Now on to the next player we're going to be talking about, big Shady Hayward, okay, 6'1", 205-pound athlete. He's a safety. He could also play linebacker, and he's from South Georgia. He's a guy that I would still say is probably my favorite player in this class. I love how versatile he is. I love the way that he plays. I love his game. And he's gone on official visits to UGA May the 31st, named him his leader after that visit. He's gone to South Carolina June the 7th, named him their leader, or named them his leader after that visit. He also went to Florida June the 14th, and he did the same thing. So what we've been kind of hearing is that he has been naming new leaders and going on all these visits because after he came to see Tennessee, he pretty much said, man, look, this is where I'm going. And he kept consistent with that. And I guess he wanted to create a little bit of suspense. Now, I don't know how true all this is, but that's just kind of like what the speculation is. I still think that Tennessee is in a great spot with him. This is going to be a huge, huge weekend where I show him a whole lot of love and make sure that we can close out on him, because one thing that this staff has not done a great job with is safeties, okay? This is something that P and I might talk about tomorrow. We have not done a very good job there. It sounds like Will Brooks might be a starter there, and not to knock on Will Brooks, but I think that if he's a starter for us, like if there's truth to that, I mean, we're not doing a very good job of evaluating talent. So it will be huge to add someone like a Shady Hayward, who I think will come in and play safety for us, because we're going to get in a few really good linebackers in this class, so he won't really have to play that position. He can actually play where I think he would be a much better fit for us at. And he has a good opportunity to come in and play very, very early for us. So that's going to be a very big one for us. Now, on to Travis Smith, 6'3", 200-pound, 4-star wide receiver from Westlake High School. We all know that this has been a really, really big one, and it's been between us and UGA as of late. And he has visited UGA May the 31st. He visited Auburn June the 7th, and he visited Alabama June the 14th. Now, it sounds like at that visit down in Athens on May the 31st, UGA gave him an offer that was beyond disrespectful to the point that it was laughable. So it sounds like they are no longer in his top 2. It's now a battle between us and Alabama. And I'm going to play this little clip for y'all right now to see what Alabama is doing, trying to recruit Travis Smith.
Not worried about him and his long-term success. But I'm letting you know right now, at this spot right here, University of Alabama, that's what we're talking about. We're going to create your future for you, God dang it. Okay? All right? We're going to speak it into existence.
Amen.
Everybody know.
There you go.
Hey, I'm one of the greatest and going to be the greatest in all of college football.
Say it again.
Okay? The greatest in college football.
I didn't hear you.
I'm going to be the greatest in college football.
The people in the back didn't hear you.
That's how it's gonna be. I'm gonna be the greatest.
Say it again.
I would say that we're in a pretty good position with Travis Smith after hearing that. So hopefully we can land him. You know, UGA is a team that, like we talked about earlier, just does not want to pay that NIL money. They don't want to pay these players. And I think that it's starting to backfire on them. Now, again, like we talked about with Isaiah Gibson, if they counter offer him and if it's something that makes him reconsider, and if they do the same thing with Travis Smith, then I think that we might kind of be in a little bit of a, we might have a little bit of a problem just because if UGA starts to pay these guys the way that Tennessee's paying them, then they will really be able to have some monstrous classes. But as it sits and as it stands right now, Tennessee is probably Travis Smith's leading school right now. So let's go on to the next player, and we have Christian Gass. We have not talked a whole lot about him either, and he's a 6'3", 220-pound linebacker from Covington, Georgia. Florida was the leader for him early on, and he visited them back on May the 31st. He's visited USC, the real USC out in Southern California. June the 7th, he visited UGA. June the 14th, and he visited Kentucky June the 17th. So he's had a whole lot of visits. Right now, it sounds like USC and UGA are his leaders. I think that UGA might be more of his leader than USC just because I don't know, how big of a deal NIL is to him. But if it is, obviously you're going to be able to make more money going to UGA than you would at USC, even though UGA is going to be lowballing you. It's just the tax situation out in California is just atrocious. So something else that I know about him is he is looking for a really good business school. So that could actually kind of put USC back into the forefront with him just because USC has like one of the best business schools historically in the entire country. And UGA's probably got a pretty decent business school, but I'm sure it's nowhere near USC. We'll see what happens right there, after this visit. Maybe Tennessee can gain some ground with him. Maybe we will be his new leader. I think Tennessee's got a pretty good business school as well. So that's going to be a pretty interesting one because, if we could add him, if we could add a guy like Jaden Perlotte as well, all of a sudden, man, we've got some linebackers with some good size, with some good length that can move around and that can play a multitude of different positions. Just always good to add that versatility. Now let's go on to the cornerbacks, and let's talk about Trey Pyke or Poteet. I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly, but he's a 6 feet, 170-pound cornerback from Wisconsin. And right now, his only official visit has been Wisconsin, May the 31st. I watched this film. I came away pretty impressed with him. Now, he's not, I wouldn't say that he's like one of those high caliber types of athletes, but if the staff likes him, then I like him too. It sounds like they really like him because he's one of those versatile players. And that goes back to what we just talked about with Shady. Do we have a problem with finding good safeties? Because it seems like what we're doing is we're finding cornerbacks, we're just moving them to safety. That could be a pretty good idea, maybe if you want to have some good coverage safeties, but typically the cornerbacks are not going to be as big or as physical as the safeties that you need to play in the SEC. So I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about that, y'all. I'm not going to lie to you. We got to do a better job finding some true safeties for sure, maybe to close this thing out and moving forward to like next season, 2026. We got to do a much better job with that because I think that they're looking at him to play a little bit more of a safety role, maybe even more of a star, which I'm cool with, but we need a true safety. So on to the last player, and that's going to be Onas Conan, and he's a guy that is 6'1", 175 pounds. He's from Columbia, South Carolina. It's very interesting that South Carolina is not in his top anything, hasn't even visited them in official capacity, but he has visited Utah back on April the 13th, Florida State May the 31st, North Carolina June the 7th, and then LSU June the 14th. And it sounds like Florida State and North Carolina are probably going to be the teams for us to beat. But he's another one that's been pretty impressionable on his official visits. We know he came back, he came up back on the 865 Live, back around like the end of May. And he really loved Tennessee. He actually named us as his leader. Then he goes on to Florida State, names them as his new leader. And I think he's kind of held strong with that Florida State being his leader. But this is going to be a really big one for us as Tennessee fans because he's coming up with his family. This is going to be his mom's first time on campus. And it sounds like he's excited to kind of show her around. We all know that if you want to win these players, a lot of times you got to win their mama. And if you win their mama, then you will win them. So I think that, Tennessee's going to do a really good job there. I love the way that our staff is just genuine. We do a great job of giving that family vibe off. And it's really not even, I don't even want to call it a vibe. That's just what it is. Like, we are a family. And it's not even just with the football team, but it's with everybody. Like, I feel like all the sports are so close. Like, we watched them on that players lounge and it's like they're best friends. So why wouldn't you want to come up to the University of Tennessee? I think that we're going to have some really good news coming out of this week's official visit. A couple of guys, just to kind of backtrack, that I think we should have maybe like on a commitment watch. I'm going to go definitely Bryce Jenkins, Maran Davis, Shady Hayward. We know that he's going to be announcing, I believe it's August the 7th. Maybe he pushes that up. That would be huge. Travis Smith, I think that he's set to announce on July the 13th, I want to say. So I think that we're in a pretty good spot with him. But I also would not be surprised to see a few of these other guys, really everybody. Maybe like outside of a Jalen Woods, he might really love us, but I just don't know if we're going to be in a position to take him. We might kind of wait and see what happens with some other players before we would open up the doors to him. I'm just speculating on that. But yeah, I mean, I could really, honestly, realistically see any of these players naming Tennessee as their new leader and maybe even committing shortly hereafter. But we will be keeping y'all up to date with all of the news and notes as we get it. So please keep a close eye out on the channel for that. And we will also be letting y'all know if we're going to be going live for Charles House tomorrow. That announcement, again, will be at 12:30 Eastern time. We're expecting some really good news for our volunteers. So also keep a close eye out for that. And thank y'all so much for sticking all the way to the end. Please do not forget to leave your thoughts and comments down in the comments section. And also make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all in just a minute. Thanks. Peace.